Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth beta and the second pass for the Affliction Warlock. So in this video, I'm going to go over talent adjustments, spells and abilities lost or gained, what kind of things have been kept from your Legion artifacts or legendaries, new graphics, a brief overview of the war mode talents, and any GCD changes therein. And there is no true gameplay in this video, but of course with all the different Warlock stuff to go over rotational bits, I will sort of turret on the target dummies a little bit to show see how a spec may flow. But consider this a one-man podcast walkthrough primer of what your spec is going from Legion into Battle for Azeroth. Of course, if you want to see the entire testing VOD where we go through everything in greater detail, very slowly, methodically looking for bugs and things, the whole VOD is linked down below. It is over on my Twitch channel, but it is linked in the description box down below. And of course, any questions, comments, feedbacks, concerns, what do you think about the spec? Leave that down in the description below that in the comment section. Go for that. And then of course, if you're new to the channel and enjoy my ramblings, consider hitting subscribe. Or if you are returning and you haven't yet, or you are currently subscribed, the bell icon next to subscribe is the actual real subscribe button now, just because YouTube is weird. I don't know. But overall, there's something I wanted to bring up at the start of this before I even go into anything else any deeper. There was a discussion that came up about the Warlocks and their fundamental theming and their fantasy that's being cleaned up and carried forward in Battle for Azeroth. And that theming now is that each Warlock, you still deal with demons in your own way, each Warlock has their own demon summon. So the demonology video, which is currently online right now, you can go check that out if you haven't already. You have the new demonic tyrant, which gives you duration increase on all your currently out demons and buffs all your active demons, or can actually cannibalize like Thalkiel's consumption to buff himself. Destruction has the infernal, which we'll go over in the next video, that generates soul shard fragments, aka embers, and just deals AoE damage. And the Affliction Warlock now has the Dark Glare. This is your main core baseline cooldown. Yes, Affliction has a baseline cooldown now. Similarly to Demonologies, where on a 3-minute cooldown costs 1 soul shard to instantly summon a Dark Glare from the Twisting Nether that extends the duration of all of your dots on any enemies anywhere that you're currently in combat with, right? That you could target, whatever, by 8 seconds. The Dark Glare will then serve you for 20 seconds, blasting its target, the target you summon it on, like a turret, with shadow damage, and increasing by 10% for every dot effect you have active at the time of summoning. So depending on what kind of AoE shenanigans you can get into with Seeds of Corruption and spreading corruption, or slamming out a ton of agonies and then getting some UAs out and then summoning the Dark Glare instantly, on average, maybe 60, 70, 80% more damage in the Dark Glare, but I'm sure there'll be some awesome Warlocks out there that'll have some back and forth on like 140% more damage, whatever. That is the new minigame you can play with the Dark Glare. And I'll, of course, show that off when we get the target dummy phase, but that's your main base cooldown now. Because historically, Affliction hasn't had one of those. But Affliction overall here has a whole lot of animation changes. Same thing with all the Warlocks, but we'll go over all of the landing animations in a moment. The Agony, Corruption, UA, Shadow Bolt animations, those are all going to be things you're going to see very soon. And additionally to that, the Reap Soul, Rend Soul mechanic and the Shadow Flame Explosion Madness or whatever you have right now, it's all gone, right? Consider that your artifact is Kaputski's and it's totally just removed. Everything on your artifact is gone. The Infernal and Doomguard cooldown summons are also gone because those had no interactions. You were just like, here's a cooldown, you summon a Doomguard. Just gonna attack your target. Yay. So the whole Dark Glare, Infernal, and Tyrant are all integral, hang on, I gotta pronounce that word, on how it interacts with your spec now. So the Legion Contagion talent you have right now, that is baseline into Unstable Affliction. So on a pure single target rotation, putting 1 UA on the target is going to be sort of how the rotation ebbs and flows. So having 1 UA up all the time is going to be very, very important, and that's just sort of how the spec will bounce. And of course, if you could burst target with putting tons of UAs up, right? You could cast up to 5, and that's totally fine. The math on how the stacking component may or may not work in there, there's no like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% damage, but how good chaining UAs together beyond a certain number, like 3, may or may not be a good thing, which of course the Warlock one-stop shop, those guys are going to figure all this stuff out for you. That's not my job. But the damage was lowered from 15% to 10% passively, but that's still just part of it. The UA damage actually applies after the baseline, so the damage you're seeing on the tooltip is with the 10%, I guess. There's no like UA also gets 10% more damage. It's just already there. And the damage amp does not work for your pets. Talking about pets, I do have the Fell Hunter sitting here next to me, just hanging out. The Fell Hunter, however, is no longer the main pet for Affliction. If you haven't been watching any of the first pass videos, or you're new to the channel, you haven't heard this before yet, or you didn't live under a rock, outside of the Demonology Warlock, which will of course use the Fell Guard, the Warlock and Hunter pets across the board now are mostly normalized. So all their main abilities are all going to be the same damage. I'm going to put on my staff right now. I'm not transmogging to Ulthalesh because it actually is totally broken and still summons the damn souls everywhere, and they just sit there and do nothing. It's just really annoying. So we're going to have a big old anchor on our back for this test. But Shadow Bite or the Lash of Pain, like factoring autos plus their special attack, these don't matter. All of their damaging abilities are the same. And your Imp is going to be the same damage because he has no auto attack. Its fireball hits a little harder. But over the course of multiple fireballs versus auto attacks plus a special ability, it's the same damage. Your Voidwalker constantly AoEs for less damage, but it's constant. So he may be a little different in the DPS situation, but if using a Voidwalker, it's not for actually DPSing. So, but now you can pick versus what you want of a pet. As a Demonology Warlock, you can't really. You can still. They'll still scale with your mastery, but the Fell Guard is just too good, right? But the Imp, the Succubus, and the Voidwalker, and the Fell Hunter are all basically what utility do you need? And then as a Destruction Warlock or a Affliction Warlock, you won't have to worry about losing a bunch of damage to them. Now, of course, both Destruction and Affliction have Grimoire Sacrifice, so you can totally just nuke your pet, which is very much still a playstyle to have. You get the pet active ability, sort of as your, like I get the Singe Magic Dispel here, right? That's still a thing. And you get like the whole passive, like random proc damage, which sort of equates to almost having a pet, but not really. But that's obviously a choice you can make for yourself, depending on the encounter, if you want a pet or not. But I mean, Imp has the Fortitude AoE, then Succubus has Mez, Fell Hunter has the Interrupt, and then of course the big one, which always comes up, is the Voidwalker. Sacking the Voidwalker gives you the Shadow Bulwark, so you get the last stand. That can, of course, be coupled with Dark Pact, or by itself just for an extra defensive. Or, of course, you can just couple it with your Unending Resolve for having more HP and then taking, you know, less damage, 40% less damage. So all of that still in the Warlock toolkit. Do all that, and you have more ease of use to that because you're not going to be worried about the DPS loss of not using your Fell Hunter. So, your Mastery is still potent. Afflictions, it does list a whole bunch of things. It scales with any of your main dots, so UA, Corruption, and Agony. It adds Siphon Life in there. It adds Phantom Singularity and a new talent called Vile Taint, which is a rotational AoE splash dot that does count as a dot for your mastery, but doesn't count as a dot for something else. So that's just Vile Taint landing, and then it has a little bit of damage over time. The extra small damage is from my stupid passive. Get out of here, racial. So yeah, that's just the Vile Taint. But again, that scales with your mastery, and so does Phantom Singularity. But these do not count, and more on this later, these do not count as dots currently for Deathbolt, which is awkward. I don't know why, but they are on there for your potent afflictions. Soul Leech was nerfed a little bit to 8% to shield and only 10% maximum. Again, UA, GCD cost, and 1 Soul Shard cast. I reversed that, but that's fine. And then everything else, you still have your Demon, still have Unending Breath. You still have Soulstone has been changed across the board. The battle res have all seen a little bit of adjustment. DK's battle res is Runic Power and Instant at 60-20. Soulstone is 3 seconds before haste in combat or before combat, 60-20. And Druids, Guardians are 10 rage, instant in bear form. It's 100%, 20% for all the druid reses. But if you're a cat, a moonkin, or a tree, it's a GCD cast time, I believe, at 100% and 20%. So they're all a little bit different in how they're used. The biggest short end of the stick, though, is DKs for sure, because they have to actually use their physical resource, their runic power. I guess it's digital resource, but, you know, you follow me. Shadow Fury is baseline for all Warlocks now, so you do have your baseline stun. It's a GCD cast time, 3-second AoE 8-yard stun on a 1-minute cooldown. There's a new talent called Dark Fury to take its cooldown down by 15 seconds if you need the stuns more often. But the overall stun gain, don't freak out. Overall stun gain has been reduced. There are very, very few stuns that are higher than 3 seconds. There's like 1 5-second stun. I think it's Hodge. That's about it. And even some other stuns like Chaos Nova for Demon Hunters isn't even a stun anymore. Neither is the Binding Shot for Hunters, not even a stun. So any amount of stun you can bring in any capacity is going to be strong when used. Shadow Bolt is going to be your baseline filler. I'll step away here real quick to show you more of the Shadow Bolt animation. So it's gone through a few iterations of Shadow Bolt, but of course Shadow Bolt looks the same for Demonology and for Affliction. And then here are your landing animations for your dots. So I'm going to put one on each of these target dummies. So here is Agony and Corruption and UA. UA actually has a stacking animation where more of those little wispies will fly around the target the more UAs that are on the target. Again, middle is Corruption, and over here is Agony. And then stacked together, of course, you'll have quite a bit of shadowy magic on that one target. So those are all new. And of course, firing your new Shadow Bolts into them as well. A little bit of the shadow, a little bit of that green fell tinge in there too. Just a touch, just a sprinkle. So that is the new animations. The new animation for Seed of Corruption also blows up a little differently. Has a different animation when it launches. It launches very fast. And then it looks like this when it pops. And of course it puts Corruption on everything. Soul Shard generation overall is still the same. It's still through your Curse of Agony. It has a scaling chance to give you shards. If you're not familiar with this thing, there's a bit of a paragraph I can read off to you that I don't think this has changed at all. Cross-dotting Agonies also gives you more, but at a less efficient amount. It lowers the overall ratio at which the scaling ticking rate goes up. But on one target, for example, it's 2.5% on the first tick, and then it goes up by plus 2.5% for every tick that goes by without a proc. And then once it procs and gives you shards, it resets. So putting out multiple Agonies will give you 2.5% on your first target, and then it's a 50% less additional proc chance on every additional Agony. So it'll add like 1.75 for one, and then just like a very like under 1% for the next. But it'll still raise the bar a little faster each time to get you that proc, and then it'll baseline back down to 2.5 plus whatever the base of how many you have out there is. It'll give you overall more, but a flat rotation with the Affliction Warlock is you should have shards to keep one UA up at all times. So I'm not going to cast with my other 2 shards there. You should always get 1 shard right around the time you're about to cast your UA. That's on just pure single target, right? You get 3 globals, and then you have to UA again at this current haste plateau that I'm at right now. And that's to stay in the contagion window. So 1 more Shadow Bolt. It'll clip a little bit at the end there. That works fine. So that is sort of how the single target flow will be. And of course, you can stop putting UAs up, so you can actually pool for a burn phase to throw up a bunch of UAs at once. But that, of course, depends on the encounter you're dealing with and what you're actually playing around with. Put my Demonic Circle down real quick here and run away. Get out of combat with the tanking dummy. I just tactically at single target over there. But, right here, gets out of combat. Everything else in your kit is going to be the same. Drain Life has been heavily nerfed compared to what you're used to on live right now. Drain Life, to put it in comparison, on live is like 260% of your spell power, and then 600% of that is healing. Now it's like 64% of your spell power, so less than 100%. And then 500% of that goes to healing. So it'll still keep you alive. It'll still definitely do quite a bit. But the scalings will be a lot different on standing in the bad and living through it. But that's until we get any Azerite traits, you know. We'll see how that works out in the end. But Soul Well, everything else is the same. Corruption, the durations of your dots are still the same. Banish, all that stuff. Demonic Gateway. So all those are still the same. Nothing else has changed in that regard. Enslaved Demon only goes +1 above your level. So at max level, it's only up to 121. So you may not be able to actually enslave elites in dungeons if they're 122. More on that, of course, later. The mana discussion came up a whole bunch today that Warlocks don't use mana anymore because I haven't talked about it yet. But Life Tap is gone. Life Tap, totally poof, gone. Anything involving Life Tap, also poof, gone. So mana is basically just for fear and some utility abilities that use mana. But like Drain Life used to cost a lot of mana every second, but it only costs 200. It doesn't cost anything. So mana is just kind of there, whatever. Not a big deal. And outside of that, we're ready for talents. Everything else is pretty much the same. So I'll go over the utility stuff first. Obviously, Dark Pact is still here. Has that synergy again with sacrificing your Voidwalker, Burning Rush, Demon Skin. Still has the stacking component to give you the extra maximum health and the extra maximum absorb on Soul Leech. Demonic Circle is here. You see it. It is 2 buttons again. So praise some demon that you praise. Give me your best demon name in the comments down below. I don't know. Mortal Coil and Dark Fury again. That's the cooldown reduction. Talents, however, here's a big one. Let me grab you the current live talents. You have lost or has been removed Malefic Grasp, Contagion, made baseline a little weaker, Empowered Life Tap, of course, because Life Tap's gone, Howl of Terror, Soul Harvest, Supremacy and Service Grimoires, and Death's Embrace. What you have added now is Nightfall, Haunt, Drain Soul, which will replace Shadow Bolt. More on that in a moment. The new Vile Taint, sort of AoE splash dot, Dark Fury, Shadow Embrace, Death Bolt, Creeping Death, and Dark Soul Misery. Both Destruction and Affliction have a Dark Soul cooldown. If you want an extra cooldown besides your Summon Demon, there's one other you can take. Dark Soul Misery is just a 2-minute cooldown that gives you 30% haste for 20 seconds. Same exact thing for Destruction, only it gives you crit. Right? Dot-based class wants haste, and the crit-based class wants crit. So, pretty straightforward on that one. We'll go over these in a moment. Soul Conduit was nerfed to 15%, down from 20, just sort of a tuning knob there. And Sow the Seeds is only 1 additional nearby enemy. It doesn't cost anything different, but on live right now it's +2. This is now +1 on Sow the Seeds. But of course, Seed of Corruption still has that awesome exploding animation. Put out some more Seeds of Corruption here so you can see multiple explosions. And it still puts everything that gets hit by it gets corrupted, right? Everything gets corruption on it. And that, of course, does scale with your absolute corruption, of course, too. There you go. And again, that's just my Void Elf passive proccing there. The extra damage is separate in the combat events now. So you can combine anything like that. There's a whole bunch of different builds. I go through like 3-ish to 4 different type of builds, but overall, this style of play to me is just what Affliction Warlock is. If you're signing up to play Affliction Warlock, you know what you're getting yourself into. So let's take, for example, a cruise control-y single target build. We'll grab the new Creeping Death, which is just Jagged Wounds for Affliction Warlock. So it's the Feral Druid talent that makes their bleeds tick faster. This makes your Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, and UA tick faster. This build, however, does work on Siphon Life. It is a little ridiculous to use Siphon Life with it. So Absolute Corruption or Writhe and Agony both work really well here. Saving you the GCDs here. We'll grab the new Drain Soul and we'll grab Phantom Singularity, because it's totally fine to use on single target, because you're not going to use Vile Taint because of the Soul Shard cost. It's going to have to hit like 3+ mobs to feel really good. It does just a little bit more damage than a UA, and it has the snare component, which is going to be really helpful in dungeons, like snaring mobs, helping kite, that kind of stuff. But the Soul Shard cost is really rough with how Soul Shards work on like 1 or 2-ish targets, right? So you got to keep that in mind. I mean, you're not going to sow the seeds on single target. That's ridiculous. So a single target rotation is going to look kind of standard. It's just, it's not going to look like anything too crazy. And we have Grimoire of Sacrifice still right now, so let me actually sacrifice a pet just for the extra procs. Because there's one extra step you can take this build that I'm going to go into next. So just sort of drain, hit your UA, hit your drain again, refresh your agony, hit drain. You know, if you like casting dots and keeping dots up and maintaining the UA window, which I'm obviously not in this playthrough, the creeping death is so fast. You have to clip your drain all the time, which is why you need the extra global save from Absolute Corruption. But depending on how fast you get those shards back, it gets a little bit close to falling off. But this is pretty much all you're expecting to see right there. I mean, it's Affliction Warlock. So, however, we'll go a little spicier. We'll take Writhe in Agony, and we'll also take Shadow Embrace. So let me refresh my corruption so it falls off that target. Shadow Embrace is every Shadow Bolt hit or every tick of Drain Soul. Now, the new Drain Soul, to backtrack a little bit, is slightly weaker than Shadow Bolt. Now, it does have the double damage execute component. It does have the soul shard sniping if you kill a target while you're draining, but the back and forth on these two is that overall, so far, Shadow Bolt looks like it does more damage if you can turret, because you can have Haunt or Nightfall associated with that Shadow Bolt. Drain Soul, however, you can, like I just did there, you sort of clip casting it and then cast a spell. And then you can cast it and you can clip casting it and cast a spell, where you cannot do that at all with Shadow Bolt. You have to just cast Shadow Bolt, right? If you don't cast Shadow Bolt, it doesn't do any damage. So at least Drain Soul gives you this. Well, I gotta refresh UA. So I'm gonna snipe that down there. And then I gotta like refresh Corruption and refresh UA. And then I'll get a little bit more Unstable Affliction in there. And then I gotta refresh Agony and then refresh UA. And then a little bit more damage in there, right? All while trying to juggle both the UA window and your dots and the Shadow Embrace window, which is a stacking 3% damage taken per stack up to 3 on your target. And it stays up forever as long as you keep getting at least a tick of Drain Soul or one Shadow Bolt in there, here and there. So, but this is a little bit more juggly now, and this is obviously going to be a little more single target, depending on maybe 2 target. There are macros out there and weak auras that'll help you manage this on 2 targets, I'm sure, where you just clip your drains on multiple targets. And again, Absolute Corruption might help with there with saving you some GCDs, and if you're multi-targeting, you're going to get a little bit more UA back because you'll have more Soul Shard generation. And if you can clip and kill trash mobs, you'll get a Soul Shard there to put more UAs back up, right? There's some funneling there. Or you can play with Nightfall, and you can keep the Shadow Embrace, and you can do that. You maybe take Siphon Life. And these are all going to be different levels of close on how this will work. Now, of course, this build, you have to make sure you're spamming your Shadow Bolts and refreshing your dots a little bit more frequently there. One more Shadow Bolt, and then a Siphon Life. One more Shadow Bolt, and then a UA. One more Shadow Bolt, and then a Corruption. One more Shadow Bolt, and then a UA. So you're going to have this like A, B, AC, A, B, A, D rotation where you're refreshing between Shadow Bolts. But that requires you to Shadow Bolt. And that depends on the encounter type, right? Of course, all this can be smoothed out with like a Soul Conductor build, right? Or Soul Conduit, be the conductor of that Soul Train. Is that Soul Conduit might work a lot more in AoE when you're spamming out a whole bunch of seeds to get seeds back, to get more seeds out. I don't know. It's the only one that really works in AoE. Creeping Death is for AoE if you use Seed of Corruption, because your Corruption ticks faster. And you can cross dot Agonies for that kind of damage. But again, is your dots ticking faster but using all those globals better in damage? Or is having more shards to spam more Seeds of Corruption actually more damage, right? Like, I don't know. And fortunately, I have a Destruction Warlock in the background throwing off their spell effects too. And then Dark Soul Misery is just that, again, that haste modifier. So finding a build that works with this kind of Creeping Death play style, up to you. You can even combine it with Haunt. So you can have Haunt and Absolute Corruption's modifier and Shadow Embrace's modifier, and Creeping Death's modifier, but good luck. The reason why I bring up the Creeping Death build first is because the other style of play here with Death Bolt, you cannot play Death Bolt with Creeping Death. They have a negative synergy. So we'll take Death Bolt. We'll grab Dark Soul Misery here. We'll put Death Bolt over here. We'll grab Misery and put that over here. We're going to grab Writhe and Agony, and we're going to grab... we'll grab Drain Soul for this. So, Death Bolt is all about these big DoT snapshot casts, basically. So, 30% of the remaining damage on your target that you Death Bolt, that's the damage Death Bolt does. Instant cast, costs a mana, 30-second cooldown, big deal. Looks kind of cool. It's just like, yeah! That's it. However, we did a whole bunch of, we did a whole bunch of stacking tests with different Siphon Life, Absolute Corruption, Writhe and Agony, Haunt, all these different things. Again, the Warlock one-stop shop, incredibly wonderful mathy theory crafting guys. They'll figure this all out for you. They'll be able to tell you how Death Bolt works, with the proper, like, put these dots up, refresh this, Death Bolt, right? They'll figure all that out. So have them in Discord or have the Warlock one-stop shop bookmarked on your Firefox, Chrome, whatever. Just don't use Internet Explorer. And this is how it's going to be, because... So we'll put Writhe and Agony up, and we'll wait for it to get 15 stacks. Just because we're sitting here talking about it. The weird component here is that because of DoT scaling with haste and your mastery, there's going to be a lot of very interesting snapshot moments with Death Bolt. You don't want your dots to tick faster. That's less overall damage that's going to go into your Death Bolt. You want them to last a long time. So we're going to put up 3 UAs. Refresh, Dark Soul. We're going to UA again and again, and then we're going to Death Bolt. So that was 10,000 damage. And again, you can UA again, go back in there. The one thing that I noticed is you always want to refresh your Agony first. Agony is the one dot that will contribute the most damage to your Death Bolt overall. Just one Agony alone is so much extra damage done correctly. And you want to refresh it so it has the most time left when your Death Bolt lands. So I was trying to cast a whole bunch. They had a bunch of shards there, right? Because I was sitting here standing around. But so let's do, well, let's refresh this, and we'll put up 2. We'll do 3. We'll do 3, and then refresh, and then slam that down. So almost 10,000 right there, right? Didn't have the haste scaling. The dots weren't ticking faster on the back end with the pandemic the haste effect, right? It's weird that Creeping Death doesn't help that, but having a lot of haste with having your dots ticking, that does. It's again, the math on this, they'll figure it out. However, now this goes back to Dark Glare. So, your main cooldown, Dark Glare synergizes really well with this. Let me get out a comment real quick here, I think. There we go. So, if you Dark Glare into this, let's do 3, refresh, Dark Glare, 15,000. Because you added 8 seconds to all your dots. We refreshed our Agony with Writhe at 15 and added more time to it, giving it more damage. And then we buffed Dark Glare by, what, 50% there? 5 dots on the target? 3 Agonies, a Corruption, and an Agony. 3 Agonies. Agony, 3 UAs, and a Corruption. So the only other dot you can have out there that actually really works easily is you can do Siphon. But Siphon looked to be more of the utility, because Siphon and Phantom Singularity don't count as dots. Neither does Vile Taint. Phantom and these don't count as dots for Death Bolt. But Siphon does. But Siphon and Phantom obviously heal the Warlock, so they help you survive. So pick your poison there. I don't know how this spec will work overall, what pet you'll use with this, I'm not sure. What situation you use Soul Conduit versus like a Dark Soul Misery Death Bolt style or a Creeping Death Shadow Embrace style. That's up to you to decide. So let me know in the comments down below what you think of all the different build options with the Affliction Warlock. But by all means, it's just juggling plates, and instead of casting demons that are animated, you're just casting little squares that go on the target that have new landing animations, of course. But if you want to play a Death Bolt style build or a Cruise Control style build, by all means, depending on how the balancing works out and how Azerite gear works out, they could be very comparable. Real quick on the GCD topic, Dark Soul Misery, if you didn't see it there, because your Soul Harvest was off the GCD, Dark Soul Misery is on as a real cooldown. Obviously, casting or the instant cast for your Dark Lair, also on the GCD, major cooldown, right? But any of your other, defensives are not on the GCD. Activating your sprint is, toggling it off is not. But overall, Warlocks haven't been hit by the GCD change very heavily. War Mode real quick. So, War Mode is toggled on and off in your capital city in Stormwind or Orgrimmar. You gain additional bonuses when you complete world quests. You gain 15% more XP when you are leveling, killing mobs, and completing quests. You gain additional flat bonus honor. I think it's 6 bonus honor from killing enemies of the opposite faction. And when you go on a 10 kill streak or beyond, you'll become an assassin for your faction, gaining a 15% damage and healing flat buff. That will go away when you die, of course, and when you kill enemy assassins, you gain even more honor. You get to pick one of your medallions, Adaptation, Relentless, or your medallion, and then any 3 of these, even if they competed, I have picked Curse of Tongues, Curse of Fragility, and Curse of Weakness. If they even competed, it doesn't matter. You pick whatever 3 you want. So these are all in the current talent calculator you have on live. So you have the Curse of Weakness, which is the physical damage down debuff. You have Curse of Fragility, which is the HP cut. Casting Circle, which is the circle you can put down that makes you immune to silence interrupts effect when you're in it. It removes the immunity when you're in your Unending Resolve, though. Essence Drain is the enemy target damage dealt debuff when you drain them with your Drain Soul in this case. So you can use that if you'd like. Nether Ward is your 3-second Reflect. You can reflect back spells. Curse of Shadows is the additional 20% damage from your damage over time effects on the target, like basically an extra dot that amplifies the current dots you have. Rotten Decay, each time your Drain Life deals damage, it increases the duration of UA, Corruption, and Agony on the target. Gateway Master gives you 20 more yards on your gateways, reduces the cast time of it, and reduces the debuff that your players get from going in your gateway. Soul Shatter is takes off all the dots of the 5 nearest enemies within 40 yards, and up to 10% of their HP is done in a snapshot. And then you'll gain Soul Shards and 10% haste for each enemy hit. Endless Affliction is deals the same damage, but it lasts 6 seconds longer. Most of that just toys with the whole silence effect that UA has when it gets dispelled, and the snap damage, right? And then Curse of Tongues is the 30% additional cast speed, right? Fragility, Tongues, Weakness. You can take any of these. You can take either super defensive build, or you can go like super DPS-y or utility-oriented, whichever you like. Pick whatever you'd like. They're active anywhere in arenas, battlegrounds, PvP open world areas that are not actually city flagged, or of course PvP islands, not active in PvE islands or any PvE content, dungeons, raids, and turns them off. That's the War Mode little talent wrap up there. So let me know what your build thoughts are for the Affliction Warlock. Let me know if you are looking forward to casting a whole bunch of dots. So can I get 4 UAs off if I actually procced a shard real quick here? Nope, no shard proc. Hello? There it is. Yeah. So if you like casting a bunch of dots, Drain Soul or Nightfall or Haunt, right? Drain Soul is going to have different synergies and different fights compared to Shadow Bolt, depending on movement or not. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of the Affliction Warlock. Again, headed back and forth on those live talents there, because quite a bit has changed. And of course, the live talents combined with these in the open world could make some pretty interesting builds. So now, if you have any questions, want to ask me anything, want to know when all the videos go live, of course, if you'd like to go follow me on Twitter, my link is down below in the video description box. It's just FinalBossTV on Twitter. We're giving away beta keys for the next couple of weeks whenever the actual video goes live on Twitter. Of course, it's whenever I go live, whenever a video comes up, whenever the live shows come back, and what the shows are going to be about, and who's the guest on the shows. All right there. I can't point the right way because of my camera. So go follow me on Twitter. If you have any questions, hit me up. I'm not some weird, unreachable YouTuber. I answer a lot of the comments here on the YouTube channel as well. But thank you all very much for watching. Let me know what you think of the dot lock. And I will see you all in the next Battle for Azeroth Beta Second Pass video.